nothing. I'm the daddy now. Next time I'll fucking tell you.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Combat Docket Radio Live. As always, this is Kurt with my co-host and partner in crime, Benny. And this week, we are going to be breaking down the UFC Rotterdam card that happened this past Saturday. Talk a little bit about ONE Fighting Championships and the big UFC 215 pay-per-view card coming up live this weekend, featuring arguably the sport's top pound-for-pound fighter, Demetrious Johnson, going for his record-breaking title defense. What's going on this week, Ben?
Not much, man. Felt good to get back in the swing of watching UFC. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire card live, but the beauty of Fight Pass cards is you get to go back and watch some cards or watch some fights after the event has happened. So it felt good to be kind of in a familiar watching environment, watching some UFC cards. I'm pretty good. I want to point out, I had a friend and listener point out that last week I was humble bragging about being on Cape Cod. So this week, in light of those humble brags, I want to apologize for absolutely nothing. I will continue to humble brag about being on the beautiful sun-kissed beaches of Cape Cod, where it dipped below 77 recently, so it was pretty chilly out there. So thoughts and prayers, please. Send them my way.
No, Cape Cod is a nice area. I haven't been there in a long time, but it's definitely nice up that way.
Yeah, I really can't complain, so that's how I am.
So let's jump into this UFC Rotterdam card. Like you said, it was great. It was great to have UFC back, because we talked about maybe a month without any major UFC action. And this was kind of one of those sleeper cards, too. Nothing really stood out too much on paper. But again, those are usually the cards that deliver. And this card really, really did deliver. You want to talk about the main event first?
I would love to. Great fight. Kind of what you expect from mid to top, kind of mid-top level heavyweights is you expect them to put on a good fight, and they delivered. I think both. I know I picked Stefan Struve to win. I think you did too.
As did I. Yeah.
I feel like Stefan Struve always fools me because he has all these tons of tools. He has so much veteran experience. He's only 29 years old. And I feel like he kind of comes into every fight with something he wants to do. Like it really clear to me here that he wanted to throw a flying knee or two, and he landed that, and he was really focusing on the uppercut. But it's like even though he has all this experience, he has like no tricks up his sleeve. It was like he was like, all right, I'm gonna throw the uppercut, I'm gonna throw the flying knee. But then I felt like Volkov was basically, all right, that's it, I'm gonna start countering you off this. I'm gonna start keying in that you're going to throw this uppercut. I'm going to throw some counter strikes. Or, Struve quickly kind of ran out of gas too. So, I felt like midway through the second round, Volkov was essentially going to throw either catching it and then countering off of that, or just countering straight up because Struve had slowed down so much. But I don't want to sell Alexander Volkov short in his victory. He did what he needed to do. I don't think he still doesn't necessarily wow me as a prospect or anything. But he fought like a veteran. He took Struve's best shots, and just kind of stood in there and countered, and then feel for the fight, when to press his advantage, when to really put his foot on the gas. And he did. It was a great fight. Probably good things for Volkov in the future, but I'm still not entirely sold on him as like a top kind of elite guy that can challenge for a title.
Well, I think Struve's been around for a while. He's never gotten to like that pinnacle. But I think I was impressed with Volkov. I think that he's definitely a player, a new, fresh-faced player in the heavyweight division. Again, we talked about last week how heavyweight needs new faces, needs new players. It's an older division. It's kind of cycled the same couple guys through. Usually it takes only 1 or 2 wins for these guys to really get in to that title contention talk. And I mean that's a big win for Volkov. I was impressed with both of them. Speaking about the fight, is the pace. I mean, when do you really see heavyweights with that kind of pace? I mean, they were fighting like Demetrius Johnson out there. They were standing in front of each other, throwing a lot of shots. By that second round, once they both started to tire down, there was little to no movement. I mean, they were standing in front of each other. And we talked about last week, you talked about in your article, I mean, neither guy really fights as tall as they are, being 6'8" and 7 foot. They fought inside. They fought in the pocket. It was great. I loved the fight. I thought Struve's chin held up a lot better than I thought, or not than I thought that it has in the past. I thought Volkov's chin held up really well. They were both bloodied up. They were both beaten down. It was a good heavyweight fight. Volkov, from here, I think he vaults up. He came in ranked 7th. I think he positioned himself for a very meaningful fight. What would you like to see him do after this?
I saw some calls for it on Twitter, and I tend to agree. I think Francis Ngannou, Ngannou had his fight with JDS fall through. So yeah, I think Volkov and Ngannou kind of seems like the most obvious thing. So I also just literally as we're recording this saw that Ngannou was basically calling just for a title shot. I don't think he's going to get that. I think they want to give him a push. But I would love to see Ngannou, Volkov. And I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Volkov, because you're absolutely right. The pace, like Volkov, he's I think 28 years old. He might not have a big athletic kind of power or speed advantage over a lot of the top guys at heavyweight, but he can fight at a pace, and we saw that he's durable. So Absolutely. I think he would be a good test for Ngannou. Maybe he can carry him into deeper waters and see what Ngannou, who is the much brighter prospect at this point, kind of has to offer.
I like Ngannou. That would be a great fight. If not Ngannou, I think the winner of Derek Lewis and Fabricio Verdum also makes sense, because you still have Kane. Whenever he comes back, he's probably in line for a title shot. Overeem is up there. He got that big win over Verdum. And like you said, Ngannou called out for the title shot because I don't really think he had anyone else in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But Volkov definitely makes sense. They're two of the fresher prospects in the division. And that would probably make for a hell of a fight. I like Volkov's style. I like watching him fight. Again, the fight delivered this weekend. It was a fun fight. Where do you think Struve goes from here?
Hopefully some time off. I feel like he only fights like once a year, but it was still brutal. Should be fighting guys in the top 15 probably, and he can still probably win a lot of those fights. I'm looking at the top 15 rankings, and it gets pretty thin around 12, 13, 14, 15. You got like Tim Johnson at 15, Travis Brown, if they wanted, right? They fought. Struve and Travis Brown fought. Any one of those guys in like the 10 to 15 range, Junior Albini, Curtis Blades, any one of those guys I think would be in fun fights. Struve is in boring fights, I feel like, except for maybe against Jared Rochold. But I didn't think even that was that boring. So I think anywhere around C for Struve, and unless, his chin like really goes, unless he deteriorates super quickly, I think he's still going to be in the UFC for quite a while.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys where he definitely has a job lined up until he really starts dipping a lot. Because like you said, the heavyweight division is not all that deep. He usually always puts on exciting fights. He's a good company guy. I think he'll be around for a while. Yeah, anyone in that that lower top 10 to 15, I think that's a good spot for him to try to get back on track. Maybe take some time off and then get back in there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they'll use him. It seems like the UFC might be going to the Netherlands every year. They went to Rotterdam about this time last year, I believe. So, you know, they could always use him. Get him a win or two in the meantime, and then this time next year go back to the Netherlands, put him in the main event. I think that's a good plan for him.
Agreed. Co-main event, Sair Bahadazara returned after he was off for 2 years. I believe he had a couple shoulder injuries. He just couldn't get healthy, but he picked up right where he left off. He stopped Wilkinson, who was undefeated in the second round. I thought that was a very impressive win for him. It was good to see him back. The guy packs a lot of power. He always comes to fight.
Yeah. Wow. Was this was a middleweight fight? Am I saying this correctly?
I believe so. Yeah. He looked a little pudgy in the midsection.
Mm-hmm.
But he still looked good. I mean, his cardio looked good. His striking looked good.
Yeah.
That was
and
impressive.
I feel like he's a guy that he's a guy that is like just a fight for anybody, essentially. I would imagine he has a difficult time finding fights against. They probably want to kind of use him as a gatekeeper type, but he is years old, been in the UFC for quite a while, since 2012.
Yep.
So fights essentially.
He's been off the shelf. He's been on the shelf though. He's been injured. He had some steam a couple years back, especially coming into the UFC, but then injuries derailed his career. So it was good to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other notable fights on this card?
Yeah, the Russians on this card, man.
Yeah.
Rustam Kabalov, which we talked about last week, picked up a win. Tough fight. A lot of people felt Des Green won it. I could have went either way. I thought it was a solid fight. Bit controversial. I probably would have leaned towards Green. Might be a little biased though, because I've seen him fight a couple times live. Abdul Karim Edilov up at 205. And again, we talked a little bit last week with the whole Jones saga about 205 needing some fresh faces and it being a shallow division. And this guy looks like he could become a player at 205. Very impressive victory.
Yeah, he's I know he's actually signed by the UFC last year, I think, and then got a USADA violation before his first fight. The guy has tons of talent. I believe, though, I hope I'm not wrong on this. I believe he's one of the guys who's tied up with Kadyrov, who is this evil Chechnyan dictator. I want to say Edilov is this guy's sons or something like that.
Oh, really?
So he has a pretty outside the cage persona. So I would hope that at a certain point the UFC would from a certain level of promotion, but I have no idea. I have no idea how aware people are of his doings. So if anybody listening doesn't know, basically works for a warlord in Chechnya, essentially, that uses MMA fighters to support and promote his regime. But, I have no idea how the UFC will treat that, if at all. If he's a prospect, maybe they'll push him regardless. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he sure as hell on Saturday looked like he could be a bright prospect in the division.
All right. And elsewhere on the card, talk about top prospects or guys that we should maybe get excited about. Zabit Magomedov. I watched this fight on mute, so I have no idea how the commentators handled that. But he defeated Mike Santiago, who had actually had a pretty impressive knockout on the Dana White Contender Series.
Yes, he did.
But Magomed Sharipov, so he threw, he's a Russian champion, I believe, and threw some pretty flashy kicks, and he looks really good doing it. I don't even know if any of the flashy kicks landed, but he looked awesome with his hands. I'm not saying he's like a world-class boxer or anything, but for a debuting MMA fighter, his pocket boxing, his hand speed looked beautiful. I know there was one sequence where he threw a rear uppercut and then like pivoted off and switched, like his back was to the fence and he did it flush, pivoted out to change position. Just really, really beautiful kind of offensive striking. Obviously, there's going to be some questions, especially in a division like 145, about his grappling and can he deal with like a really strong grappler? Because even Mike Santiago was able to kind of clinch and stifle him for stretches at this fight. But Zabit Magomedov, get pumped, tune into his next fight, most definitely.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that we all need to keep a watch on. A lot of people were talking about him coming into this. I watched a little bit of footage on him, but this was wild. The guy was off the chain. I mean, his pace, he had that, that Russian pace, just forward moving. Like you said, his boxing looked good. I thought his grappling wasn't that bad too. He hunted the rear naked choke throughout the fight. He finally got it for the finish. I mean, he was throwing scorpion kicks. He threw the Ben Henderson kick, if you want to call it, spinning. The guy looked great. He looked like a killer. And then he called out Artem Lobov after the fight. I don't know if you heard that, if you were on mute.
I did not, but that's smart. That's so smart. That's such a winnable fight for him.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good fight, too, because Lobov has, I guess you want to call it the Conor effect. Same with Dylan Danis, where people talk about him through Conor.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is he ranked at featherweight? No, he can't be.
Lobov is a featherweight, yeah.
No, I said, is he ranked at featherweight? I
doubt it. He has. I mean, I don't think he's beat anybody other than Yahara.
No. Yeah, no, he hasn't. But still, that's a good call out. I am definitely in to see this Zabit fight whenever he's on a card. And again, if you guys haven't seen that fight from this weekend, please check it out. the guy is a stud.
Absolutely, and he's 6'1", and he's lanky, but he's not like a weak lanky. The guy is muscled, and I said maybe he would have problems with grapplers, but he's not like a little flimsy guy at 6'1" at 145. He's big, powerful, looks like a monster athlete at least, and obviously has some skills.
No, he does indeed. The last Russian to make a big impact on that card was Myrbek Taisimov. He had a beautiful walk-off counter an overhand. Put his opponent to sleep.
Yeah.
Super impressive.
Some brain damage, big time. And I assume that will go on his highlight forever. Like stepping back right into a one-punch knockout. And I'm looking at his record right now. That's his third performance of the night in a row. So good for him getting that money. And I believe that's 5 knockouts in a row for Myrbek Taisimov in the UFC.
5 straight finishes. That goes a long, long way. And he was off for a while, too. I think he was off for about a year prior to that fight. So that's a big win coming back for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, good things going for Taisimov. I didn't realize looking at his record that he was on such a great run. I mean, he's not fighting like the absolute best of the division, but 5 straight finishes in the UFC lightweight division is nothing to scoff at.
No, and he's another guy that made a claim after that he deserves I'm a top 10, top 15 guy. I absolutely agree with him. He made a call out as well. He called out Michael Chiesa. Signed me up for that fight. Chiesa's always fun to watch. This guy's fun to watch. A lot of the other lightweights are a bit tied up. I mean, Taisimov's fight was about a minute long. I don't think he took too much damage. You never know what happened, behind the scenes or anything, but it didn't look like he got hurt or anything. I'm in for him versus Chiesa. I think Chiesa needs a big bounce-back fight after the Kevin Lee fight. Pretty much everybody else is tied up. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm all about that. And Taisimov is no slouch on the ground. I know he's kind of known as a striker, but I think he would give Chiesa a good fight there.
Yeah, I agree. This guy's definitely good for 155. If not, Chiesa, I did see on Instagram, or I should say social media. I don't know if it's Instagram or Facebook, wherever he put it out. But Jim Miller put out a video saying that no, he can't get a fight. No one's itching to fight him right now. Jim Miller is one of my favorites. Anytime that dude fights, it's must-see TV. So if Tysomov's looking for an opponent and Chiesa's not that guy, Jim Miller is that guy, because that dude will fight anybody and put on a performance.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Now, I think the big takeaway from Rotterdam was there's several guys that I'm excited to see fight again.
Yeah.
Volkov, Tysimov, Magomed Sharipov. There's a handful of guys that I want to see more of.
Yeah, one last guy that we should mention before we move on is a guy we mentioned last week in our little preview of the card was Darren Till. Were you able to catch his fight with this dude's name is hard to say.
Bojan Velikovic?
Bojan. We'll just say Bojan. I don't know.
There we go. So I have not seen the fight yet. I definitely will. I know he's, like I said, I think he's maybe the best prospect right now coming out of Great Britain, maybe like Arnold Allen. There's a couple other guys, but Darren Till, I know a lot of people maybe think he needs to round out his game. He's a pretty like traditional Thai striker, but I haven't seen his fight, so maybe you got some insight into how he looked against somebody who maybe wanted to test his grappling a little bit more.
Yeah, there was very, very little grappling in this fight. It was a firefight. I mean, both guys stood toe-to-toe. They both landed shots. Bojan is super tough. Till knocked him down in, I believe, the first round with a beautiful step-in elbow. And Bojan fought through it, got back to his feet. Till scored another knockdown in the third. I mean, these guys were playing to the crowd. They were having a blast out there. He looked good. He definitely solidified his top prospect label. He himself made a call out as well. He called out Santiago Ponzinibbio after the fight, who's coming off that. I won't say impressive. I mean, it's impressive to beat Gunnar Nelson, but with the whole eye poke controversy, it kind of puts a little bit of a marring onto it. But I mean, Ponzinibbio is a great striker. Darren Till is a great striker. That's another fight. Good call out. Good fight. I'm down to see it.
Yeah. That's a big step up if you look at who Till has been fighting. But hey, man.
Hey, set your sights high, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm impressed that all these guys like got the memo to have a plan, know somebody's name, just somebody's name to say on the mic after you win. And it's got to help their like career earnings. So even if he doesn't get Ponzinibbio, he inserts himself in that discussion.
Yeah,
of like who he thinks he should be fighting. Good for him. Good for all these guys having people ready that they want to call out, that they want to fight next. That's how you build a career.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some guys aren't big on that. They'd rather just fight the next guy up, let their actions speak for themselves. But I like the call outs. I mean, if you got a name in mind and you're not getting the fights that you want, or you feel you're ready for that next level, make your call your shot, and if it works, hey, that's awesome.
There's so many people in the UFC now. Like the divisions are crowded. You gotta do something to set yourself apart. I don't think the people that are like just trying to curry, you're not really currying UFC favor if you get on the mic and say, I'll fight whoever they put in front of me. Like the matchmakers aren't like, oh wow, this guy is awesome, he'll fight whoever. They're just like, all right, you didn't build a fight for me at all.
No,
you know
I
what
agree.
I mean? Like I don't think you're being good to your UFC bosses when you just say I'll fight whoever, because that doesn't help them at all.
No.
I think that these guys got to call out somebody. So good for them.
I agree. Again, do you have anything else for this card?
That's it.
Stands out to you?
Happy that it's back. Happy that it's back.
Yeah, agreed. It was a good card. Again, it was one of those cards that really jumped off the paper, star power wise, but produced a lot of finishes, produced exciting fights, produced some intriguing matchups going forward.
Absolutely. You wanna talk a little bit about Ben Askren and OneFC over the weekend?
You know I want to talk about Ben Askren. Again, guys, I told you guys 2 weeks ago in our opener. If you haven't watched Ben Askren, if you don't know who Ben Askren is, please watch the guy. And again, he produced. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. He fought Sebastian Kurdistan out of Sweden. Maybe not the biggest name. Good fighter. Tough fighter. Good striker. And Ben, let me ask you, or let me have you guess how many let me rephrase this. Can you guess how many punches Sebastian Kurdistan landed in the fight?
Well, I'm cheating because I know the answer. But I believe it was 0. Is that official? I know that that number was thrown out, that it was
okay.
0 punches were landed, but I don't know if that was official.
It's up for debate. He might have landed 1, but I believe officially he landed 0 in a professional fight. I mean,
it went 2 rounds, by the way.
2 rounds. Ben does his thing. Kurdistan was so caught up in trying to stop Ben, he didn't let his hands go. Ben caught him, picked him up, slammed him, and, just swarmed him from there. The way Ben transitions from mount to back, the way he passes the guard, the way he attacks submissions to set up passes, it's amazing. He literally beat the piss out of this guy until the ref stopped it. I thought a little late. I thought he could have stopped it in the first. Ben wasn't landing the hardest punches, but there was literally no defense. There was one point where Ben had Kurdistan in what's called a gift wrap, where he pretty much wrapped his arm around his face, took away one of his arm defenses, and was just punching him for maybe 30 seconds straight. No resistance, nothing. And again, he won the fight. He, after the fight, called for OneFC to please get somebody in there that could actually hit him. And after the match, it came out that, I believe I said 2 weeks ago that Ben had one more fight left on his contract, and we were both kind of hoping that he would maybe go on to the UFC somehow, some way, finally. But it turns out that Ben's actually going to retire. He's going to fight Shinya Aoki November 24th for the OneFC belt, and it's going to be his retirement fight.
Man. I guess I'm excited to see that fight. I think Shinya Aoki is going to learn what it feels like against some real man grappling. It'll be interesting to see, because you think of Shinya Aoki as this crazy guard player with all kinds of skills off of his back. And I imagine it's going to hit the mat basically immediately.
Yes.
But I think anybody kind of in the jiu-jitsu community or people that have followed MMA closely, you've seen videos of Ben Askren rolling with Marcelo Garcia, things like that. He's not just what you were talking about, the way he transitions from position to position to position. He's not just a powerful wrestler that can grind out wins.
He's a great freaking grappler. He's amazing.
Incredible grappler. So yeah, I'm excited. Like you said, I'm sad that he's retiring without really ever fighting the best of the best of the best in the world. It's a fun fight. So if I want to play devil's advocate here and say Ben Askren is not that good, what's the argument? What if I said, you know what? What if I said Neil Magny could be doing this too? Neil Magny could be a OneFC welterweight champion. How do you prove to me that Ben Askren is better than all those guys?
Neil Magny could be a OneFC champion on November 25th. The day after
true.
Ben Askren retires. Put it this way. This is my hot take of the week. Maybe I'll get some haters from this. I hope people want to talk shit to me. Whatever. Ben Askren would do the same thing that he did to Sebastian Kurdistan to Damian Maia. The best grappler in the world, Ben Askren would do the same exact thing. He would take Damian Maia down and he would beat him up. No, he's not going to submit Damian Maia. He's probably not going to pass his guard too easily. But Damian Maia is not going to easily sweep Ben Askren. He's not going to out-scramble Ben Askren. And I don't think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. And Ben's cardio is great too. He's not going to get tired scrambling around with Damian Maia. Neil Magny would get taken down and beaten up until either the ref stops it or until he wants to stop it himself. Listen, there's two fighters in the world that I would pick against Ben Askren. And that was a prime GSP and Rory McDonald. Other than that, give me anyone against Ben Askren, I'm taking Ben Askren. And it's a shame that he didn't get to prove it against the best in the UFC. It's a shame that a lot of people don't know who Ben Askren is. A lot of people don't respect the talent that he has and the career that he had. But again, I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters. The guy is amazing. November 24th, OneFC, Ben Askren's retirement fight against Shinya Aoki, who in his own right is always a fun guy to watch.
Do you think? How do you think he'll do against Aoki? I mean, I think the dynamic is clear. I haven't watched Shinya Aoki closely in a while, so maybe he's trying to defend takedowns or something now. But I assume the dynamic would be Askren gets on top, Aoki plays from bottom, and it's. But I don't know how do you think that fight plays out?
I think Ben's a natural. Obviously, not. I think I know he's a bigger guy. Aoki's fought down at 45 before. Aoki's always a tough guy. He's a good grappler. But again, he's not going to be subbing Ben. He's not going to hit Ben with a gogoplata. His takedown defense isn't going to be up to par. He's not going to be able to keep it on the feet and really threaten Ben. I think Ben's going to take him down and beat the piss out of him. Retire on top.
Yeah, he's got his wrestling school. He's made a good fortune fighting for OneFC.
Yeah, he made a ton of money. He had a great career.
And he's never been knocked out in competition. He's financially set with, like I said, with his wrestling school and the money he's made here. So, I'm sure people can hate on Ben Askren, but I guarantee you he is fucking happy living his life. So,
and that's the most important thing. So,
yeah,
again, props to Ben on a great career. I'm looking forward to it. Aoki versus Askren retirement fight, November 24th. Maybe he's actually... I would love for him to get into some competition grappling. Maybe Submission Underground or maybe an ADCC eventually, so he doesn't have to get punched in the head, even though no one could punch him in the head recently. But I'd love to see him competitive grapple now that he's going to be walking away from MMA.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. And that's kind of a field that's growing. Polaris, Submission Underground,
yep.
all those
EBI.
Oh, fuck. I would love to see him in some of that stuff. Against either other MMA fighters or like the best grappling only guys there are. Buchecha, Danaher Death Squad guys, any one of those guys, I'd love to see him.
Agreed. All right. Enough about Ben. Oh, Angela Lee's actually defending her title on that OneFC card too. Got to give her a plug. She's a beast. That chick's
big
awesome.
time prospect there.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, let's jump into 215. This card, again, we said a couple weeks ago, this is the card of fighters that the UFC does not promote properly. Your two champions at the top of the bill, Demetrius Johnson, Amanda Nunes, were publicly bashed, I guess you could say, by UFC President Dana White. And now, a couple months later, they're headlining UFC 215. It's fight week, and UFC 215's gotten, no buzz about it. So we're going to give you the buzz about it because this card is excellent. I mean, really, this is a great card. The main card and some of the undercard fights are absolutely awesome. Great matchmaking.
Yeah, I would say for people like us, this is our lifeblood. Which is crazy that it's a fucking pay-per-view. They make money selling views, and for whatever reason, they don't seem intent on selling it. But this type of fight is for people like us, or this type of card, rather, is for people like us to see Demetrius Johnson fight, or super pumped to see Nunes, Shevchenko, at his second welterweight fight. Not a ton of name power, I guess, but Cejudo is on the freaking undercard. There's just, there's a lot of good, well-matched fights on the undercard as well as at the top of the card.
Stevens Melendez. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
So
I'm pumped. I don't care if there's nobody else in the bar watching with me. I'm pumped.
That's what I'm saying. Let's start at the top. It's weird that it's taking place. Edmonton's kind of a weird place, too, for it. But, whatever. I've always heard good things about Edmonton. Yeah, let's start at the top. Let's break down at least the main card and then maybe a couple other fights that that stick out on the undercard. We'll start off at the top. The man, arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter ever, Demetrious Johnson, going for his record-breaking title defense against Ray Borg.
So, I guess, Demetrious Johnson is going to be a huge favorite, or he is a huge favorite over Ray Borg, and rightfully so. That said, I think Ray Borg has a better chance of upsetting DJ here than Wilson Hayes did. And I think he has a better chance than a number of other fighters. The big issue for Ray Borg is he really needs the fight to hit the ground, or he doesn't. Ray Borg's style of grappling offense is he doesn't need to necessarily solidify a takedown or hips and get your ass on the ground. The opponent usually turns their back to stand up. He's a masterful back taker. Ray Borg is. The issue is, he's a good. And you know what? Demetrious Johnson doesn't have perfect takedown defense. He's been taken down. We saw it.
Tim Elliott took him down a couple times.
He doesn't have absolutely impeccable takedown defense. Does Demetrious Johnson? The issue is we've seen Ray Borg when he fought Justin Scoggins. Ray Borg could not get the fight to the ground or even close to Scoggins' hips, and he was just fucked the whole fight.
Yes.
I understand that he changed camps after that, and I think this will now be Ray Borg's third fight with Jackson Winklejohn. So he's getting, I think, more confident and setting up his takedowns, and he's really fast. He is, I think, a pretty underrated athlete, Ray Borg. He's really, really fast with his in and out jumps, and obviously he's really, really fast in scrambles and getting to the back. The issue is, can he put DJ on his butt? And then not only would he need to put DJ on his butt, take his back, but then actually, because I don't think Ray Borg could consistently kind of surprise Demetrious Johnson with takedowns. Demetrious Johnson finishes him because he has so much more experience, and particularly experience in 5-round fights. That said, look for Ray Borg. Hopefully they have a game plan to give him a good chance here. Put DJ against the fence, which sometimes DJ will hang out against the fence a little bit too long. Like I said, Ray Borg just needs to get DJ's ass on the ground, at which point hopefully take his back when DJ tries to stand up. That's kind of how I see it. I think it's not as big of a blowout as people are making it, but stylistically it's a really hard matchup for Borg.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the thing is, like you said in the Scoggins fight, he wasn't able to get Scoggins' hips enough, which I think is going to be his main problem against DJ. DJ's footwork is so good. The way he moves, the way he's able to turn you in the octagon, the way he's able to chain his striking to wrestling together. The guy is an absolute mastermind in there. And I don't think that Borg is at that level yet. He doesn't have that top flight experience yet. He's got some good wins. He's fought some good fighters. Smolka's solid. GCA Formiga's solid. He had that tough fight against Scoggins. He fought Dustin Ortiz. Gene Herrera. That was an awesome fight. Gene Herrera's another solid prospect. But again, just looking at the fighters that DJ's fought, the fighters that DJ's beaten and made look silly, it's just such a daunting task for such a young fighter. And again, cardio-wise, Ray Borg has had trouble making 125. Is he going to be able to hang around at DJ's pace for 25 minutes? DJ's going to make you grapple. He's going to make you strike. He's going to make you chase him. He's going to put you on the back foot. I mean, he's great everywhere the fight goes. Wrestling, grappling, striking. He's good backing up. He's good coming forward. He's good with his angles. It's a tough fight for Borg. I do think Borg deserved the fight. A lot of people a little bit critical of DJ with the whole TJ thing and all that. But, I mean, looking at the rankings, DJ's beating everybody. Borg's ranked third. The only guy in the top 5 he hasn't fought is Pettis, but Pettis just fought Moreno. So I'm happy with the fight. Again, it's DJ's record-breaking chance. I hope Borg makes the weight.
Yeah, me too. And I think I'm glad that you said something about the cardio. I think one thing that has solidified DJ's title reign is the fact that other flyweights don't fight in 5-round fights unless they're in the title.
That is true.
Flyweights are promoted or not promoted. So for a lot of these guys, Cejudo, Borg, I could probably go down basically all of Demetrius Johnson's title defenses, and that's for most of those guys. That's their first time in a 5-round fight, right? Because they're not typically headlining other cards. I'm happy, like Pettis and Moreno just headlined a card, so Pettis at least now has a 5-round fight under his belt.
True.
Not just cardio, but being able to manage it, knowing how to manage it across a 5-round fight will be key here. Because, like I said, I think Borg is kind of an underrated athlete. I think in the first couple rounds, athletically speaking, just like athletically, maybe not skill, but like speed and strength, I think Borg can hang. I think DJ know what 3rd, 4th, 5th round feels like, whereas Borg really only knows what the 3rd round feels like. So yeah, I think DJ takes it late, but don't be surprised if I hope Borg gets his back, gives us some interesting moments.
DJ has gone 5 rounds 8 times in his career. That experience, the way to handle that, the way to know how to handle that and pace yourself throughout that is just something that he brings to the table that, like you said, a lot of these flyweights don't have experience with. I think Borg is good enough to be able to make it interesting early. But I think DJ takes over as the fight goes on, and I see him stopping Borg in the 4th round. I think with everything on the line, this being his what could be his 11th title defense, breaking that tie with Anderson Silva, I think DJ's going to go out there and put on a show. I think he stops him in the 4th round.
Yeah, I'm with that. Absolutely. That's basically how I see it playing out too.
And by the way, prior to Reebok, DJ was the coolest dude ever because he was sponsored by just Xbox. That was the dude's only sponsor. It was so awesome.
I don't want to get off on a sidetrack, but there was like certain fighters like Conor McGregor, that dethroned shirt where it's like Irish, like old-timey boxers being sponsored by Xbox. There was some cool shit going on.
Yes.
Whatever. We can talk about Reebok another time, but yeah. Demetrius Johnson is everybody's best friend, I think.
Yeah, he's awesome. I think he's going to put on a show this coming Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'd really say about the main event is, for whatever it's worth, that Ray Borg seems to be supremely confident. He's already talking about giving DJ like an automatic rematch. I mean, I guess in this business you have to be confident in yourself. So, again, take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, he's a well-spoken guy, and I think he was at, Albuquerque's the other like big MMA camp in Albuquerque for a while, and I think that the change of scenery, not that he was getting poor training at his previous camp, but I think the move to Jackson Wink, being around so many kind of elite fighters, leads to that kind of confidence that you're talking about. And I think he's coming along really well as a fighter. I like Ray Borg a lot, and I think he's well spoken. But yeah, the confidence that he's talking about is something it's good to hear, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to the co-main event. This is another very intriguing rematch between Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes. They fought. When did they fight? Was it 2015?
Let's see. Their first fight was UFC 196 in 2016. Actually,
2016. Okay. It's
very. And then after, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was a very close fight. Valentina Shevchenko started off a bit slow, and towards the end, she really started to pick it up. And I won't say take over the fight, but she was really doing well. So we're going to see how those extra two rounds we can help her, if it's going to make or break the fight. Because Amanda Nunes tends to start to fade towards the end of the second round into the third.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of the kind of clear narrative here, is that fight Nunes obviously won, like you said, exactly what you said, won the first 2 rounds pretty handily and then faded real fast in the third. I don't know if there's a lot of smart people that I respect that are really on Shevchenko here for exactly that scenario, that now a 5-round fight, those 2 extra rounds are going to make a lot of difference, and then Shevchenko will take the rematch. I am just not sold on that scenario really at all, especially because Nunes absolutely beat the brakes off Shevchenko in the first 2 rounds. I think it was late in the first round she had Shevchenko's back and had a deep choke sunk in that Shevchenko was able to spin out of and escape. Especially early on, but I think throughout the fight, if it ever hits the ground, I don't want to say Shevchenko she's not bad on the ground by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think her armbar win over Pena is really overrating Shevchenko's ground game.
I'll agree with that. Yes.
She has. That's good. I'm glad somebody else sees it. She has good. Obviously she has great kind of Thai style trips and sweeps from the clinch to get it on the ground. But after watching, really paying attention to her grappling, she doesn't advance a position. I've only ever seen her be basically, other than the armbar, which my grandmother saw coming on Juliana Pena. There's not a lot of nuance. She reminds me of a really athletic, blue belt, or somebody who only ever classes a week and they're just fucking super athletic, so they surprise you sometimes. But if you looking at the grappling exchanges between Nunes and Shevchenko in particular, disparity is huge, and I think Nunes will not be so surprised this time. And I think don't be surprised if you see Nunes come in with kind of a takedown heavy game, looking to really press that advantage here. Shevchenko couldn't even really defend herself. There's a sequence in their first fight. I haven't seen it for a while because I watched all these fights prior to their first fight or their rematch initially being scheduled. But there's a sequence in the first Nunes-Shevchenko fight where Amanda Nunes is standing over Valentina Shevchenko and just raining down blows.
You're right.
Like a weird situation, and she's just will not. She's has down, and it's fucking get back to guard. She grapples like somebody who's never taken a proper jiu-jitsu class. You know what I mean? She doesn't coach it the way somebody who Amanda Nunes, who very clearly has taken a lot of just straight up jiu-jitsu classes. I think the grappling there is massively different. And Nunes also owned her on the feet for the first 2 rounds. I think Nunes will be more prepared going into the rematch. Obviously, cardio is a big issue. But for me, the grappling part that people are kind of leaving out and forgetting that Nunes really owned Shevchenko on the ground. That's my 2 cents. I mean, I could talk about this fight a lot, but that's the big takeaway for me there. And I'm picking Shevchenko here, or Nunes, sorry, not Shevchenko. I'm picking Nunes here inside 3 rounds, I think. I think she gets it done inside 3 rounds.
Wow. Submission or KO or TKO?
Let's say TKO, because I think Shevchenko is the type that you either have to choke unconscious, which I guess that would be a submission.
Yes.
But I think like an armbar, she's going to let her arms. She's super tough. Gets positional dominance after getting on the feet pretty handily, gets positional dominance and finishes the fight by TKO.
I like what you said about, and I think you summed it up perfectly, about Shevchenko's ground game being a little, I guess you could say a little overrated due to that armbar over Pena. And again, that's not to say that Shevchenko's not well versed on the ground, but I think Amanda Nunes definitely has a clear-cut advantage here if and when it does hit the mat, because I can see Amanda Nunes coming out with a grappling heavy game plan. But talking about cardio wise, that could be her downfall, because again, she has slowed not only in the Shevchenko fight but other fights as well. She's slowed down heavily throughout the fight, and again, just having to wrestle around and grapple takes a lot out of you. And she throws a lot of big shots on the feet too. She tends to wing some of her punches. I'm going to go with Shevchenko by unanimous decision. I think it's going to be a little bit like the first fight. I think Nunes is going to start out. She's going to start out fast. I think she's going to win the earlier rounds, but I think Shevchenko again is going to take over late. I think both ladies are going to have each other in trouble throughout the fight, but I think Shevchenko's going to win a pretty close decision. Unanimous, 5 rounds. I think she's going to pull it off this time, and again, I'm excited for it. I think it's a really, really high-level fight between the 2 best fighters in the division. I just think Shevchenko is going to be a little bit more crisp on her feet. She's going to pick her shots well. Her cardio is going to hold up, and she's going to be able to survive when she needs to make it through the fight.
Yeah, I think that could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that's Shevchenko at the very least has a super clear path to victory, as really picking her shots. And I wrote something in advance of when their rematch was initially scheduled. I wrote something about Shevchenko's counter right hook and kind of how she waits for the fight to enter kind of a medium distance for her to throw, and that really exacerbates the difference in cardio here. Shevchenko is just so economical with her strikes and when she chooses to throw them. And Nunes is not like, she throws hard.
No, she does.
Throws
yes.
a lot. She has great range. I think if Nunes can stay outside of kind of the middle range that Shevchenko prefers, Nunes can pick her apart from the outside. But that said, it exacerbates the difference in cardio, because Shevchenko throws so rarely, and when she does, she makes it count. She's super picky with her counter strikes, super picky with kind of how she goes for takedowns with little trips and throws. So I have money on Nunes in this fight, but the narrative is clear there of how Shevchenko could win. And I think this is like one of the best fights in all of MMA, man, woman,
I agree.
Any weight class. I think this is one of the best fights to be made.
Absolutely. What are the lines? What's the line in this fight, by the way? Do you know by any chance off the top of your head?
Got Nunes at plus 105, and Shevchenko is just, so it's basically even. It's essentially
it's a
even.
Which I think is fair. It's a very, very close fight.
Yeah, and I don't know what to think of Nunes's pulling out of the first fight. Like, I don't know if I should read into that at all and think that means anything about her mental state on there.
I don't think it's going to have anything to do with her mental state at all. I think she's going to be ready and prepared for this fight.
Yeah, she's low-key one of my favorite. Not a lot of people like her. Maybe she's cocky or whatever, but she gasses out. I feel like people don't usually like fighters that don't have a lot of cardio because it kind of seems like they don't have a lot of heart. But she's low-key one of my favorite fighters to watch.
I don't know how you
Super
don't like
aggressive,
Nunes.
killer.
Yeah, she's a beast. She's amazing.
Down
She's
there.
such a good fighter.
Yeah. I mean, I love her. I think she's great. Super exciting. And if Shevchenko wins, I'm pumped for the trilogy. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the odds up right here. I'm on bestfightodds.com, whatever that is. So Demetrius Johnson's, minus 1250. Bray Borg's plus 800. Most of them have DJ at minus 900. Borg plus 600 range. Nunes and Shevchenko.
Basically even.
It's pretty
plus
much a pick
100, minus 120.
Yeah, it's a pick 'em. Dang. Which, that sums up the fight. This is a really good fight. All right, so you got Shevchenko. Or no, I have Shevchenko by unanimous decision. You have Nunes by third round submission.
TKO. I'll stick with TKO.
TKO. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Third fight up on the main card is Magny versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Another awesome fight. Big fight too.
It's a relevant fight, and it tells us a lot about where RDA is. And I feel like I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw rumors that RDA for a 170 title fight at one point. Am I making that up?
Say that again?
I just saw a headline that was offered like as a backup for Tyron Woodley's last fight. Like he was a backup.
No shit, really?
In case. Let me look it up so I'm not just totally talking out my ass here. But I'm pretty sure I saw something that he claimed or something that he was here we go. Yeah, if you Google it, Dos Anjos accepted title fight versus Woodley was backup for UFC 214.
Really?
Yeah,
that's interesting because he only had that one.
I guess that one. They want to give him options.
Recent fight.
It's Tarek Safdie. He only had one welterweight fight. Yeah.
He only had that one recent welterweight fight against Tarek Safdie. Magny is coming off. I mean, he had that. What was he? He had 7 straight wins before he ran into Damian Maia buzzsaw. And then he pieced together another 3 wins before he ran into Lorenz Larkin. He got stopped by elbows, and then his last win was against the shell of Johnny Hendricks. So this fight makes a ton of sense. They're both Magny's ranked 6th. Dos Anjos isn't ranked at the moment, but again, Dos Anjos is a former champ. He looked great in his welterweight debut.
I'm excited to see how it plays out. Because Dos Anjos' style seems so dependent on his ability to kind of impose his physicality.
Right.
And he did that against Tarek Safdie pretty well, I thought. But Safdie is not, he's not the most like rugged, durable, like big welterweight.
No.
And not that Neil Magny is big. He's huge. His length is impressive for the weight class, but he's also not another like kind of super rugged guy. But I do think he's difficult to take down and more difficult to kind of impose his will on than Tarek Safdie.
Yeah, he's just a real well-rounded dude. He's got good striking. He's got good grappling. He doesn't fold under pressure. It's a big test for Dos Anjos moving up in weight.
And even if Neil Magny basically beat Johnny Hendricks off of his back. Like he won the fight, and I know it was a questionable decision for a lot of people, but he won the fight from throwing strikes off his back. So even if Dos Anjos is able to get him down, which he may not even want to, he may just want to put him against the fence and beat him up. But even if Dos Anjos is able to get him down, we've seen Neil Magny basically win a fight from his back, which is impressive to do.
Agreed.
It's a closer fight. I know the betting odds have this is almost a 2-1 favorite.
Yeah,
I think it's a
Dos
little bit
Anjos'
closer
favorite.
than that.
It's definitely closer than that.
Neil Magny's no slouch, so.
Agreed. So picks wise, I'm gonna go with Magny. I think Magny's one of those dudes that performs really well as the underdog. During his 7 or 8 fight win streak, he was the underdog for a bunch of fights. He beat Gastelum, he beat Eric Silva, Hector Lombard, the Shell of Johnny Hendricks. He has some solid wins. Tim Means, Alex Garcia. I think he does well as an underdog. I think he's a really well-rounded fighter. I'm going to go with Neil Magny by unanimous decision.
I think I'm with you on the upset pick here. I think Magny can Dos Anjos on the end of his reach for most of the fight and escape trouble against the cage. A unanimous decision. I'm with you on the upset pick here.
Which, I'm surprised that the lines aren't closer. I think this is a really tough fight for Dos Anjos coming up. Again, Dos Anjos is a badass, but it's a tough fight. Magny's no slouch.
Yeah. Maybe Dos Anjos will fill out more too as he gets used to the weight class, but I'm not sold on him as a viable big because he fights like a big strong guy. He needs to be the stronger guy in there. The way he fights, that kind of moving forward, pressuring style, and I'm not sold that he can do that. But we'll see. I like Magny here in the upset. So,
all right, so we're in agreement on that. Next fight up on the card, we have Ilir Latifi against Tyson Pedro. Sweden versus Australia. But doesn't Pedro fight out of New Zealand now? He's from Australia, but doesn't he fight out of New Zealand?
Tyson Pedro?
I believe so, right? Or am I just making that up?
No clue. No, you're probably right. Not a lot of people. So if you look at Tyson Pedro's record, he's only 6-0 and has never seen the second round. He has 6 first-round finishes. Well, he has several submission wins, but at heart, he's like a heavy-handed kind of banger. So if you look at Tyson Pedro's record, he's never seen the second round. And he has a handful, I should say, of his 6 victories. 4 of his 6 victories are submission victories, but really at heart, the guy's just like a physical, aggressive banger. And he's young. He's obviously athletic, at least enough to score big knockouts. I don't really know much about him, and I don't think anybody does. He's only fought 6 fights. All of them ended in the first round. And this is only his 3rd fight in the UFC. I think Ilir Latifi is maybe a little bit too big of a step up for him. Latifi has, I think it's fair to say, a weak chin. But, if you look at Latifi's record, his last fight was against freaking Bader. Ron Vellante, Sean O'Connell, Cyril Diabate going way back to 2014. His chin is totally shot here. I think Latifi can butt with some wrestling, rough him up a little bit in the clinch, take him to deep waters where Pedro has never been. Is Ilir Latifi by stoppage, I want to say in the second round, after he gets Pedro's first taste of the second round.
So, like I said, Pedro only has 6. He only has 6 fights under his belt, and again, he's never seen the second round. But his 2 wins in the UFC are both against very good prospects. He submitted Khalil Roundtree, who's had some stumbles in his career, but Khalil Roundtree is a really, really solid prospect. And then he had that TKO over Paul Craig, who, again, he's another solid prospect. I think he hit the nail on the head with both of them pretty much. I mean, I think at heart they both come in there to bang. They like to stand and trade. Latifi's definitely more battle tested, but you did mention how Latifi's chin isn't that great. Tyson Pedro definitely has some power to him, so I'm going to go with Tyson Pedro by knockout. I do think he's going to see the second round for the first time in his career. I think it's going to be a Rock'em Sock'em Robots first round, where both guys have some success. But I think he gets the finish in the second round. I'm going with Tyson Pedro, second round TKO.
Right on. And if that happens, then the light heavyweight division maybe has somebody else. I know that division is super thin. Tyson Pedro is a good addition to kind of the winners of that division.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely both. I mean, the light heavyweight division definitely needs some fresh faces. All right, so
yeah.
And again, let's see, just for shits and giggles, the odds have Ilir Latifi minus 160, Tyson Pedro at plus 120. So that's another underdog pick there.
Yeah, I think those odds are about accurate.
Yeah, I agree. Given Latifi's overall experience in the UFC.
You said you want to talk about what should be fight of the night, probably? Gilbert Melendez?
Yes. Rounding out
Jeremy
the main
Stephens.
card, Gilbert Melendez, featherweight debut against the always exciting Jeremy Stephens. Looking at this card up and down, there is some good fights, but I can't see any fight topping this one.
Yeah, I mean, unless one of the main events really delivers. Both guys are, known for exchanging, known for brawls.
Both have great chins.
I think it's kind of sad that Gilbert Melendez is dropping to 145. I don't know how. There's obviously lots of questions there about how he'll look, and he, had tested positive for testosterone. Obviously, I don't know how Melendez is going to look dropping kind of so late in his career, but at the same time, it's not like Jeremy. Both these guys, I should say, I think are in the careers. Stephens, God, his record is 25-14, and he's been in the UFC since 2007. So yeah. Jeremy Stephens has been around the block,
and he's fought a ton of good dudes.
And if you look at it, he lost a split decision to Renato Moicano in his last fight. Jeremy Stephens lost to Frankie Edgar, lost to Max Holloway, beat Dennis Bermudez, lost to Charles Oliveira, and lost to Cub Swanson. So he's fought some killers. I think maybe his power is a little overrated because he didn't have a ton of recent knockouts. That said, he's a pretty smooth. I think people think of Jeremy Stephens as kind of like a wild brawler, and he can be. But I also think Stephens can be a pretty smooth combination kickboxer. He'll put together some leg kicks, body kicks. He'll put together some nice looking combos. And I think it's here against Melendez, who I just have questions about how Gil Melendez is going to look dropping a weight class so late in his career. I think Stephens will be the more comfortable one in there. And I think Stephens is just going to look a little bit more refined. Kind of crazy to think that he's the more refined guy than Gil Melendez. But, I think the kicks from Stephens might make a little bit of a difference here, leg kicks, things like that. And just questions about Melendez. My pick here would be Stephens, unanimous decision in hopefully a barn burner.
Yeah, I tend to agree with pretty much everything you said. Stephens, I don't think, doesn't get enough credit for, I guess you could say, his technical striking, because he's a very good striker. He tends to wing some punches, but he does have very good leg kicks. He mixes it up well. He's tough as nails. Gilbert, I mean, he's had an amazing career. And he's just hit a bit of a rough patch lately. It's kind of tough to see. I'm a big Gilbert Melendez fan. Like you said, so late in his career, dropping down to featherweight. It's going to be tough. I think the one thing that Gilbert does have in this fight would be the wrestling and grappling advantage, if he does choose to use it, which usually Gilbert Melendez tends to stand and bang, and I'm sure Jeremy Stephens is going to be more than willing to do that with him. My pick, my head says Stephens, but my heart says Melendez, and I'm going to go with the heart here. I'm going to go with Gilbert. I'm going to go with Gilbert winning by second round guillotine.
Ooh,
throwing
specific.
Something random out there. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think they're going to come out swinging. I think both are going to have their moments, and I think he's going to catch Jeremy in a scramble and submit him with a guillotine. Or like you said, it might be just be a brawl for 3 rounds with either one coming up on top.
I think it's clear that they both kind of know their role on this card, and it's to deliver an action fight.
Right.
I think both guys are kind of at the stage of their career where they're like, I don't really care that much about winning or losing.
No, because neither are anywhere near
I just
a title
want to put
shot.
on a show. So I think when there's kind of like an unspoken, or in their case, maybe it is spoken, kind of agreement to just put on an exciting fight, tend to deliver when neither guy really has a pretense about like a defensive game plan. They're just going to attack.
I agree. Time. And I think the real wild card here is going to be Gilbert. You know what Jeremy Stephens brings to the table. He's a pretty active fighter, but Gilbert coming off the suspension, dropping a weight class, rough patch later in his career. I think Gilbert's really going to be the wild card here.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he looks like in the new weight class.
Agreed. Further down in the card, it seems like it's not the FS1 prelim main event, but 2 former title challengers, 2 former Demetrius Johnson victims are on the card. Henry Cejudo's fighting Wilson Hayes. Should be a good scrap.
Yeah. Cejudo is pretty heavily favored here, and I get that. He's got the credentials and I think athleticism. But question with how Cejudo is going to approach a fight, whether he's going to try to kickbox a little bit, show off his striking. I don't know how Cejudo is going to look in the clinch. I know Wilson Hayes is really strong in the clinch. But he's not an Olympic wrestler in the clinch. I think Cejudo is rightfully favored. Don't sleep on Wilson Hayes. I think Wilson Hayes has had a terrible style matchup against. Everybody's a terrible style matchup against Demetrius Johnson, but I think we saw kind of how bad he got his ass kicked against DJ. And I don't think that really reflects. I think if Demetrius Johnson were 10 years older and much slower and much worse, I still think just style-wise he would beat the shit out of Wilson Hayes. I think Wilson Hayes is a better fighter than what we saw.
Yeah.
That said, the wrestling, the speed, I think Cejudo's like in and out boxing is going to be a little bit too much for Wilson Hayes, who's getting the fight to the ground and kind of beating the guy up. Unless he can catch Cejudo with like a counter left hook or an overhand right in an exchange, I don't see Cejudo. I don't think he gets finished, but I think Cejudo does not finish Hayes, but I think he gets a pretty clear, decisive, unanimous decision victory.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I think Cejudo is the rightful favorite. You summed it up right with DJ just being a terrible, terrible matchup for Hayes, but I think Cejudo is probably equally as bad of a matchup for Hayes. I don't think Hayes is going to be able to take Cejudo down with any regularity, if at all. And I think Cejudo's striking has come along nicely. I think he's going to, I'm in agreement, he's going to win a clear-cut unanimous decision here. And he is the big favorite, about minus 345, plus 280 is the comeback on Hayes.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm ready to see. Hopefully Cejudo looks great. He's always, it's hard to not get excited about a guy with his credentials. Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. I'm excited to see him. The title shot was a little rushed against DJ. I'm excited to see him get a more winnable fight than Demetrius Johnson or Benavidez. A couple of tough fights there for Cejudo. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how he deals with a much more winnable fight, but still a tough fight in Wilson Hayes.
Agreed. So the actual prelim main event of this card pits Ketlin Vieira out of Brazil against former title challenger, number 6 ranked Sarah McMahon. This will be Vieira's third fight in the UFC. She beat Ashley Evans Smith by unanimous decision in her last time out, and she beat Kelly Fashholes in her debut by 3-round split decision. I watched the fights. I haven't watched them since. It's not really sticking too much out. I know she's a good fighter. She does have some hype. A lot of people are giving her a really good chance in this fight. But I am going to go with Sarah McMahon. I think the experience and her overall grittiness is going to win her this fight. Unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm with that. I wouldn't be surprised if McMahon finishes her like an arm triangle. It's hard for me to think of many women in that division that can compete with Sarah McMahon physically.
Right.
Man lost to Miesha Tate. I felt like because Tate was so just like super tough and was able to win scrambles, but physically, like I feel like nobody can really compete in that division outside of maybe like Amanda Nunes. Once McMahon is on top, I think it's game over. She either wins a decision or she passes the guard pretty easily. Maybe gets if she wins by arm triangle, it would be her third in a row, which I'm sure is some sort of fancy sorts. But yeah, I'm with that. McMahon takes it pretty easily.
Agreed. Anything else you want to touch on about 215?
No, man, I think that's it. I wish more people knew about how good especially the top 2 title fights. I wish the UFC promoted it more. But like I said at the top, I don't give a shit if I'm the only person in the bar watching it. I'll be there watching it.
Me neither. I'm very excited for this card. All right, let's talk about some odds and ends that are going on in the mixed martial arts world. Have you had a chance to see the craziness that happened at Fight Night Global this past, what was it? Was it on Labor Day? Was it Monday?
I'm not sure. It might have been in the middle of the night last night or on Labor Day.
Crazy Russian time. You haven't seen it yet with Brandao?
I only saw some tweets that made it sound like something wild was happening.
All right, so check this. So he fought for Fight Night Global in Russia. Diego Brandao, former Ultimate Fighter winner. A fight was actually pretty good. And in the second round, let me just get the name of the dude that he fought. Give me one sec. Oh yeah, you pull it up and it's just a whole bunch of craziness. So who the hell did he fight? Okay, so Diego Brandao fought Ahmed Aliyev, Fight Night Global. In the second round, Brandao is on his back, and it looks like it looked like he bit the dude's ear. And prior to this, I mean, they were throwing punches after the bell at each other. The ref was trying to break them up in a couple spots, and they were kind of, throwing punches. You could tell tensions were building. And again, it looked like he bit Aliyev. And Aliyev.
So hold on.
Good.
Dow bit his opponent from bottom?
Yes, it looks like he bites him in the ear, and Aliyev actually kind of like screams out. And I don't know if the ref... I don't know what happened. The ref eventually... Oh, no. Aliyev eventually like headbutts Brandau's chest, right? And the ref goes in to stop it, and Aliyev just starts unloading punches on him from the top as the ref's trying to break them up. Right? So Brandau gets up. He walks to the cage door, and he tries to get out. The door's locked. Fans start booing and throwing garbage into the ring. Brandau jumps over the cage and tries to leave the arena. Fans are booing. Fans are throwing garbage in the ring. It was a crazy scene. They eventually got Brandau back in the ring. Brandau officially lost the fight by TKO due to, I guess, retirement. I guess because he quit. But, man, it was crazy. If you go to my Twitter, Kaposa, at Grabaka Hitman, he posted, or he made a post that had a link with all the fights on YouTube. I mean, you could just literally Google Diego Brandao, and you're gonna see the videos. It was a crazy scene, absolute madness out there.
Yeah, man. These things happen in MMA, I suppose. The video right now, it hasn't gotten to the juicy stuff, but I'm of the mindset that stuff like this is kind of what makes MMA awesome. I'm not with the crowd of people that are like, oh, it needs to, makes it feel more like a sport. Like the NFL wouldn't have something like this happen. I don't give a shit, man. This is like this wild stuff. Yeah, I'd be a little embarrassed if it happens on a big old UFC card, but the fact that this is the sport. Oh, and Diego Brandao he's fallen from grace. But you know what? He was a UFC fighter. He was a legit UFC fighter.
Yes, he was.
I love it when wild stuff like this happens, just because it's entertaining. I love to be entertained, and crazy stuff happening is. I'm watching the video now. Like I said, it hasn't gotten to the good stuff. Brandao doesn't look bad though.
No,
I guess until he
hit
some dude's ear. Apparently.
Yeah, he looked good in the fight. It was a good fight. But yeah, it was madness again. Anyone who hasn't seen it, I suggest you check it out because it was interesting, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Some new John Jones. Some new John Jones information came out. Do you want to touch on that? I think you know a little bit more about it than me.
Sure. So there was kind of some waves in the news because USADA, I believe it was USADA, basically confirmed that John Jones had passed his post-fight blood test. So people, you hear that and you immediately think, oh, something weird happened. The issue is that the substance that he had initially popped for only appears in a urine test. So to put this all in context of how weird it is, he takes a pre-fight urine test, tests positive for steroids, and then his post-fight blood test, as well as all the previous random blood tests prior to the fight, he passed. So we're still waiting on the B samples. It looks like it'll take a few more weeks for the B samples to get tested. Something that's interesting, and there's an article about it on MMA Junkie. The California State Athletic Commission executive director basically acknowledged that it's a weird situation. The quote is, the entire situation doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. We've got to figure this out because this is just crazy. That's, Athletic Commission basically saying this is weird. So yeah, still, it's still weird. Don't let it be full. He still hasn't officially been cleared. John Jones hasn't. But he's passed every other test except for this one urine test that would have happened I believe, after his weigh-in, but before his fight.
Yes,
for steroids.
The test,
so
the test
weird.
that he knew about, and again, it's like you said, it is so weird of a situation, and this was almost like another. I don't know. Again, it seems like him passing the blood test has nothing to do with his urine test and clearing him. So it sounds like he's still screwed.
Yes, I think screwed is the correct way to describe his situation right now.
One question I have for you. Tough 26. What's you watching? You interested? Are you interested in the Ultimate Fighter anymore?
I am not watching, but I will say I'm not one of those people who's like super proud that I don't. There's a subset of MMA fans that like refuse just on principle for whatever reason to not watch the Ultimate Fighter, which I get. Whatever. If you really don't like the reality TV aspect to it. If I'm home watching television on a Wednesday night, I will tune in. I will watch it. It's not a show that I've watched with any regularity for years because I'm mostly just interested in the fights. But we could talk a little bit about, do you think they're kind of doing another gimmick this year where they have to crown a new champion? I don't think it's really helping the ratings. I don't know. Do you think the Ultimate Fighter is a useful vehicle for developing prospects, for getting eyeballs on the sport? Is it doing that anymore?
I honestly think the Ultimate Fighter has run its course. I think, and we're on season 26 now. I would imagine that the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series is going to be that platform now, and again, that takes off all the reality TV drama that I think so many people are over and sick of. I haven't watched an Ultimate Fighter season in a while, I'm going to be honest. I did hear that the last season was a bit less reality TV and focused more on the training and the actual fighters and the fighting, which is a step in the right direction. But yeah, I think it's run its course. I wouldn't be sad if they cancel the series and just rocked on with the Tuesday Night Contender Series to bring in new crops of talent.
Yeah. I will conservatively say 45 seconds of research here. Do think that there was a time when UFC cards, you could look at the card and there's like half the card are guys that had been on the Ultimate Fighter.
Right.
And that doesn't really happen anymore. Just looking at the cards happening recently. Regular UFC cards are not populated by tough alums for the most part.
That's true.
However, if you look at it from like a business perspective, normal Ultimate Fighter gets between 400,000 and like 600,000 viewers a night, which is like well over all other average viewership on Fox Sports 1. So I think from a Fox Sports 1 perspective, like the channel, and I don't know the insides, the in and outs of the deal the UFC has with FS1, but I think from FS1's perspective, it's like we have a reliable show that does better than all of our other shows. Even though I tend to agree, I haven't watched it in a while. I think we could see like, tough season 45 or something if it stays at this rate. Even though it's not really producing like top tier talent, like it's still apparently a show that enough people watch to make it viable television.
That's a good point. So yeah, maybe we'll see tough 45 eventually. Who knows?
God, they're gonna run out of stuff to gimmicks and stuff, but whatever. I mean, I guess they're crowning a new champion this year, so.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever it's worth, I'm picking Lauren Murphy to win it.
I don't know if I have a pick. I mean, I recognize.
There's only a couple names. Yeah, there's only a couple names you could actually recognize on the whole show. Yeah, Barb Honchak. Roxanne Modafferi is always fun.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird. I guess this is for the 125 belt, correct?
Yes.
There's a lot of So let's say Roxanne Modafferi wins the belt. Like, there's going to be, what if Joanna Jędrzejczyk wants to go up to 125 and just destroy Roxanne Modafferi or something? Like, it's kind of weird because there's already a number of fighters in the UFC that have fought at 125. There's been a few fights at 125 and that are for a title at 125 probably. So kind of weird that I feel like whoever wins this season is going to be kind of a lamb to the slaughter against whoever wants to fight for it next.
Agreed. Paige Van Zandt and Jessica Eye are about to fight. I could see them trying to angle Paige Van Zandt in for a title shot as well. She's kind of like the UFC's golden girl.
Oh God, yeah, and she would probably do well against a lot of these women on Tough 26.
Aldo Lamas running it back at 217. What's your opinion on that?
Weird fight.
Agreed.
Or weird rematch. But you know what? I guess Ricardo Lamas looked great against Jason Knight, I believe, in his last fight. See, I don't expect it to be any different. I think Aldo wins. Weird fight, weird time, but huge opportunity for Lamas, I guess. If he wins, he should get a title shot, I would hope. But fight, weird timing. I don't know what they're going to do with Jose Aldo now. If he's just going to fight kind of elite guys, but not for the title. I think Aldo wins again pretty easily.
I think, like you said, weird fight, weird rematch. The only thing I think is, Lamas looked really good against Jason Knight. I think Aldo, I want to say, almost has his foot out the door at this point. He seems like he's looking for avenues to get out of MMA. He was talking about boxing. There was that point in time where he wanted to... what did he want? He wanted them to, cancel his contract or something. He's been so hung up on the whole Conor McGregor thing. I think he's got his foot out the door. So that might play into Lamas's part. But if Aldo's there, I tend to believe it's going to be the same result if he's there mentally.
Yeah. Always excited to see Jose Aldo fight, but kind of weird to see him in not a wildly relevant fight.
Yeah. First time in how long since he hasn't been in a title fight, too.
Yeah, it's weird.
You got anything else for us, man?
I think that's it. If you're listening, go to CombatDocket.com. We'll have some good content this week. Sync your calendar with the Combat Docket calendar. Stay up to date on all things face punching that are happening.
Yeah, again, we say it every week. Follow us on Twitter at KCPKO, at Benjamin Abrigo, at Combat Docket. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode live, Combat Docket Radio. Thank you all.